I am live. Hello, folks. Happy Types on Tuesday. It's a live one. I actually tried to record some non-lives, some prepared in advance videos, and they didn't come out smoothly, so I thought instead I would try to channel my thoughts in live action, see how it goes. I can always private this later. So let's make this an open conversation instead of just me talking to the box. I can hear what you guys think as well. I've been thinking a lot lately about enlightenment and have been reading different things about just sort of have access to it right now. So this is not a direct quote, but to look out at the sea instead of drowning in the waves is a more peaceful way to live, I guess. Looking out and enjoying the waters and seeing it. Oh, there's the ups, there's the downs, instead of literally like drowning. And that's kind of a metaphor for not drowning in your own anxiety and instead kind of seeing your own thoughts outside of yourself as well as your emotions outside of yourself a bit. Like, oh, I'm angry, or I'm experiencing this right now, instead of found a lot of introverted feelers can kind of drown in certain thoughts of like if they have a thought that they feel guilty about, they might feel like they are a bad person because they had a bad thought, but it allows you to free yourself from these thoughts of especially negative ones. Whereas you're not a terrible person. You're just, it's a thought that you had, and instead of claiming it, just noticing it, like, okay, that happened. Which I don't struggle with that as much with the moral dilemmas. I have struggled with it with sometimes intrusive thoughts like ruminating and obsessive thinking, or certain there's an introverted feeler trying to sneak by. Question, do you sometimes think you're a bad person because of your thoughts?
Yes.
My hypothesis was correct. Well, you can't really. This isn't a proper experiment. It's one person. But he has introverted feeling. He's gonna go be on the phone. But he'll feel guilty because of something he thought, or like, and he'll kind of chase the thought. And it's so easy to do it because it feels like the natural thing to do, and we are addicted to thinking. I'm so addicted to thinking, and I feel like on the opposite side, you can also attach yourself to good thoughts, like thinking, wow, that was a unique idea, like I'm so creative, unique, type 4, INFJ, whatever it is, and you're clinging to this idea of self and who you are, instead of sort of just letting that thought be a thing that happened. Instead, you want to chase it. So it can be on the other side. It can work both sides into I'm a terrible person and wow, I'm so special, I'm an awesome person. And you are an awesome person. You're a person. You're great. You. It's just instead of clinging too much to it, allow it to come and go, because you're going to have lulls where you have writer's block and you're not as creative and your thoughts aren't flowing, and that doesn't make you any less worthy than when you are flowing and you've got the flow, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna make sure that I'm going live. Is anyone on here yet? This is my INFJ channel, right? Am I on my INFJ channel? I hope I'm not on my music channel. Yes, I am. Okay, good. Because if I was on my music channel, that would be very confusing for people. They'd be like, why aren't you singing? Enough talking. Hello, disassociated. What a perfect username to be joining us in this chat about disassociating our thoughts from ourselves. seems hard to get distance from one's thoughts because they feel super close to oneself, real, like oneself, because there's the only private thing inside one's head experience. Let me read that in my head again. Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's like the thing that you're experiencing and sharing with yourself, so it's hard to like see it as a separate thing. Hello, Melissa. Thank you for joining. I was listening to a podcast with Eckhart Tolle, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. If you haven't, he's like the Yoda of human people. He's very wise and speaks of enlightenment, and I heard him talking of his experience when he kind of reached this point of the death of his ego, which is that self that you're identifying with. He had a really dark time when he was thinking of committing suicide and struggling and thinking, I can't live with myself. And he kept having the thought, I can't live with myself. And then he stopped and he wondered and kind of had an out-of-body experience of like, wait, who is the self that I can't live with? There aren't two people here. It's just me. And so then he looked at the thought without realizing that was that's kind of a thing that other people have identified as well. It's CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and some other. I find it ironic that certain groups have claimed this idea that you can't claim an idea or a thought. It's kind of ironic, but anyways, he looked at that thought outside of himself, and that's when he realized that he doesn't have to, like, there isn't a self, and he just had this, it was like an epiphany he had, and then he started to be more bodyful. Mindful is the proper word, but isn't that also strange, that word, because it's literally the opposite. You're supposed to be mindless. You're supposed to be bodyful and present and not busy in the mind, but just aware. And so he talks about just being really present in what you're doing. But we're so addicted to thinking. I am so addicted to thinking. I go to bed and I just think, and I love it. I think of the next day, what am I going to do? I think of the future, all these things. I chase my thoughts, and I'm trying to be more present about just being. Like right now, I'm thinking out loud, right? Does this count as thinking, or am I present in the flow of the thoughts that are happening? Because there's also acceptance of just like these thoughts are happening. I don't know. Some of it's confusing to me. I'm still growing and learning, and I also feel like definitely like it would be a lot harder if I weren't in a certain situation. It'd be a lot harder to work on this because of, say, privilege, like being in a safe space, being in shelter, and being able to like really actually focus and feel free of certain discomfort that maybe not everyone experiences, which also, that's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. See, everything has these like different systems, and I'm just keep like, oh, that system defines this, and this system defines this. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs says you have to have security, safety, belonging, all these things before you reach enlightenment. It's like a pyramid. It's funny, there are so many different systems that humans come up with because we love patterns, and we love making meaning and discovering patterns and labeling them. It's very fun, and that's also addictive, I would say. But I also do feel like there's a lot of truth in most of these systems that people come up with. Whether or not it's all true, it usually is not. I think it's hard for something to be entirely true. It's a lot of time there's gray area. But I do think a lot of time these systems, you can learn something from a system. I've actually been reading about feng shui, and kind of like some of it is a little funky and not so much feeling like it's backed up by logic, but some of it does feel like there's truth, like certain people dedicated their life to studying this, and it seems like that's something to maybe learn from or listen to, or there's a lot we can get out of the things that people do, but I guess it depends on if the person is, I mean, I was gonna say, like, well, I don't know, smart or something. I'm very chatty. Chat. If you guys have thoughts of your own, join along, or this is another thought I've been having, like, so these different ideas that people come up with and then they make money off of, like the secret to life. Have you guys heard of the secret? Which is envisioning what you want in life, where you picture yourself, this goal. So let's say that I picture myself as the lead in Wicked the musical. I picture the green face, I picture the songs, I sing the songs. Every night before I go to sleep, I vividly picture it. I am Elphaba, I am Elphaba. I'm pretty sure, I haven't read the book, but I've learned about the secret. And then eventually, if you envision it enough, then it will happen, is the idea. Am I right in saying that? And that, to me, I think there's more in between there. I think with hard work and also envisioning and believing and positive thinking can really help you reach your goals. But also, there's this whole other idea, not to get attached to ideas, because attachment usually leads to aching, bad sadness when it leaves. Like, if you're attached to a person and they pass or leave, it's going to be very hard. It's loss, it's grieving. The same thing for an idea of what you could be or what you could have. So these attachments to the material world, you love your car so much, and it's this is the car that was made for you. And this car breaks down and it's done, kaput. You get it totaled or something. Then you realize your attachment, and it's going to be harder to get over it. When really, it is just a car, and it's not the only car for you, and there's another car, and it's sort of like that with a lot of things. So then to me, my question is, if you're practicing the secret on something, and then you lose it, then you're kind of screwed, because you really got attached to this idea of being Elphaba. And then you have the audition, and then you don't get it. And then it's like you're crushed, because that was your reality, because you made it your reality in your head. It's like you believed it so much, and then I feel like it'd be extra difficult to get over it. And so I feel like maybe the secret isn't so sustainable, or you need to have other things to back it up. Like, I guess, awareness, and knowing also that, like, this has been helpful. I've said this in the last video. Russell Brand brought up in a video, you don't know what's best for you. So just realizing you don't know what's best for you, maybe it's not Elphaba, maybe that's too specific a vision, but maybe you just want to act more or something. I don't know. I've been kind of, like, struggling to make all these different theories and ideas meet and make sense, and I think it's because there's just so much gray area, and there are exceptions to many of the rules. So anyways, but I do think, and then of course I'm talking about this with my friend Stephanie, ENFJ, and we decided that, have you guys heard of the serenity prayer? I'm looking it up so I get the proper wording. Grant us the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, courage to change that which can be changed, and wisdom to know the one from the other. And I'm not religious, but I do find this certain prayer to be very, very, have a lot of wisdom in it. And I think that kind of answers some questions, like knowing what you can change and being able to know the difference and all this stuff. That could kind of help through your goals and journeys. But another question I have is, and feel free to answer if you like, after the matter, after the live stream or during, what your thoughts are. I don't think there's just one answer, but we can all have our perspectives. My other question is, I lost my train of thought. And I'm live, so I can't stop talking. I must entertain the 9 people on here. What was my thought? My question was, oh, no. Hi, Max. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I am mad comfy, Hope. This is a new couch. It's not brand new, but it's my mother-in-law's couch. She's moving, so we took her couch, which is great, because our old one was a little bit dumpy, but that's fine. It's just material items. That's my favorite chair in the world, the red chair. I'm moving. We bought a house, so that's a big milestone, and that's kind of what brought on a lot of these thoughts, because buying a house is stressful, and it was a turbulent process, of course, the ups and downs of, oh my gosh, is this the one? I still get attached to the idea of the one, even though I know that that's just something that my mind's making up. And we found one that I did get attached to. I got attached to the idea of living in this house, and I pictured future memories there, and I pictured it all, and it was so vivid, and we didn't get it, and it crushed me. And I was doing it to myself, and I know that the idea that I had was what was driving me crazy, and not the actual reality, because I was fine. I was just in the comfort of red chair, pondering this house that I would never have, and I never did have. And it's a material possession, but to me it felt like so much more. It felt like fate, like I'm choosing my fate, and I felt like that was the correct fate, because that would influence our potential children's futures. If we have children, like who they're friends with, what schools they go to, and it would affect our futures, our drives to work, our drives wherever, and maybe neighbors and different things. And it felt like that was the right choice. But again, there isn't one right choice. There are many choices. But I had trouble truly believing that emotionally. I understood it logically, but I couldn't make, logical mind Molly and emotional mind Molly join each other. Instead, I was just super bummed and feeling like we just really missed out. And then we ended up finding a house eventually. At first it felt like that was the one, and I kept feeding that sort of pathway, that attachment to this house by picturing it, and I was torturing myself. My brain likes to do that sometimes. I would look at the pictures, do all the things you're not supposed to do when you're trying to get over an ex. It was basically like an ex, but it was a house that I never had, so. But I was doing all the unhealthy behaviors, and it took a while to get over it, like remarkably long for me to get over it, and I was aware. I'm like, I'm still upset about this house. Anyhow, I guess it's somewhat of a happy ending that we did find another one that probably makes more sense if I'm trying to make sense of things. And I feel more calm and at ease this time around making the decision, instead of such a emotional, just passionate, this is the one. It's more of just a logical, okay, this makes sense, but there also is some feeling to back it up, because they say you should be logical because it's a big financial purchase, but also I am very much so relying on my intuition as well. And when I step into the house, I can feel love and none of them felt right. But when we walked into this house together, we both felt it. It felt right, and we didn't even look at each other, and I'm like, I like it. Do you like it? He's like, I like it. And we just kind of, it was just this knowing. And I'd say, like, right now, this is the most spiritual I've ever been in a while, because I was pretty nihilistic and, yeah, for a long time. But lately I've been kind of feeling like, I don't know, I'm just feeling vibes and stuff. Like the house, like certain houses, I was feeling like maybe they're bad vibes, maybe ghosts, I don't know, something. But this house, it's like, there are good vibes, and I feel like this house was loved, and I feel like there's a good neighborhood, and it just felt right. Like it was, I was also seeing signs, like how I used to see signs, like, I don't know. Like, a 4 is considered unlucky in Chinese culture. I'm not in China, but a 4 is unlucky in an address, and a 6 is lucky. And there was a 4 in the first address, and then there was a 6 in the second. So I'm like, oh, see? And then I'll use that to justify it, but really, it's just a coincidence, potentially. So anyhow, I was thinking about these houses and how it's my idea of them that I'm getting attached to rather than the actuality of it, because we can live a good life wherever we find ourselves. And that's not necessarily true, though. To me, it feels like pressure, because it feels like you could end up somewhere that where your safety feels threatened and you feel uneasy, which affects a lot of other things. So anyhow, also, there are trees and nature around this house that we ended up with, and I feel like trees are really good for the human, and they just are, like, they give you oxygen, and then they take up all the toxic stuff, and they, being one with the trees and stuff is a very good way to be present, to just be in nature. So having quicker access to that, because really, if you have any house, you can just go to the park. But to me, I don't know. I'm trying to understand, because material items don't matter, right? But then what if you have a passion for playing music and you never have a guitar? Like, I guess having like a trash guitar to play. I guess maybe it's specifically like the hunger for more and more and more. Like, oh, now I want this fancy Taylor, or now I want this, and then I'll be happy. That's untrue. You can have a toilet guitar and be happy. But what if you don't have a guitar at all? You can still be happy. It's not about like happiness necessarily, but like just these external things, tangible things, will only bring you temporary happiness. The lasting happiness is, they'll bring you temporary satisfaction, but the lasting, like, peace of mind. I keep saying happiness, but I don't feel like you can be forever just like, oh. But I guess at peace. That wasn't even a sentence, and Frank was coming out. What? Got something to count a lot.
That's great.
Chatty.
Yeah.
Talks on Tuesday. Okay. Hope says, couch in law, congrats on the house. Thank you. This is a couch in law. Hey, Maddie.
I said hi.
I don't think Matthias is on yet, but Matthias, if you watch this later, Franco says hi. Disassociated says the systems don't mesh because they're talking about different experiences or different ends of the spectrum. It's good to have dreams and move toward them. It's good to love what's present. Okay, so my question, that reminded me, thanks, is can you be present and ambitious? They're talking about different ends of the spectrum. So is being ambitious on one end and being present, and then is it just finding that balance and finding both when you need them? Like setting a goal and and working toward it, and then being present during that. It's about the journey, not the destination, sort of thing. Is that what it is? So just finding a balance, because to me all this like talk about presence, it sometimes confuses me because I just have so much ambition and future drive that I'm thinking of all these visions of what could be and what will be and what I can do to get there. And to me, presence is not, presence is, I mean, it's supposed to be right now. And so then wouldn't you not be thinking about then and what to do? And then would you get anything done, or would you just sit with the trees? And is that only for the Buddhist monks, or can that be for someone who's also wanting to do things? I guess for me, I'm using it as a tool to help me stay calm and more emotionally tranquil throughout this journey called life. Life. Can you guys hear all right? I know the speaker's here. If you can't hear, I can put in headphones. Disassociated, but because everything inevitably changes, nothing can be perfect forever. Yes, I read that in this, I'm reading this Yoga Sutras book that my friend sent me, and it's talking about that. Like even a rock, like think of any object and it will change. So becoming attached to it, you can't count on it to stay the same. Stoicism touches a good bit on similar ideas, that happiness and peace of mind lies in focusing on those things with our direct control, and that a lot of life is out of our control. I tend to pick and choose from those various sets of ideas. Yeah, I think it's funny how we just choose what works for us, which makes sense. And I feel like that will also change with time. I also think my earliest form of enlightenment experience without knowing what it was probably when I realized one morning that my favorite color wasn't necessarily my favorite color, because someone asked me and I just had this like epiphany that today it might be red, because red looks really pretty over there on the umbrella. And it was just striking in it was striking me in such a way that, and then I thought about how I was conditioned to just say green and purple. Every time I was asked what my favorite color was, it's purple and green, but not together, blah, blah, blah. And I'd say it every single time. And then, of course, then I start to believe it, and I'm attached to that. But is that really my reality today? Or is it ever changing? We really do attach ourselves to certain identities. Color lovers. And it's also okay to, if you continue to like a color. I don't know, I don't feel like I'm ready to let go of my ego. Ego being not like not my conceitedness. For those of you who are unsure, ego being Molly, the person who talks about things. Better light over here, eh? Could be the universe or God just speaking to you in your language with the numbers, or could be coincidence. Loud and clear. Yeah, it's funny because it's like, I read in this Yoga Sutras book too. Let me actually find it so I can have the direct quote. I don't like that I keep paraphrasing, but it happens. Because people chose these words for a reason, you know? They chose them carefully. This is the book, by the way. It's backwards. The Path of the Yoga Sutras. It says, whenever we make... Excuse me. I need to swallow. Sometimes I forget to, swallow, do normal things. Whenever we make an important decision, often the universe will energetically support us. It's very simple. There's lots of things that are just very concise, simple, and it just feels like a solid sentiment. It's like, okay. And I did feel very much so in this decision that I was supported by all the little things I was trying to find meaning towards, but then I also wonder if I'm just making that up. It just depends. And right now I am feeling a little bit more like, ooh, maybe this means something. Whereas usually I'm more like, I'm making it mean something. So that's where I'm at today though, so who knows. Kuro said, well, I think you don't always have to be present. You can be present at times and at other times focus on your goal. It's both healthy in different ways, I think. Yeah, and that makes sense. There's not like a one size fits all too. Like I keep trying to find this one underlying message that will, I guess the serenity prayer right now is making the most sense, to summing it all up. But you can't really sum it all up, and you don't need to sum it all up. It's also my love for the linguistic world. Also, you know, when someone's enlightened, then they can't really talk about that. Like, I can't talk about my love for words, because who am I? Like, you know, then it's like, then I feel like I wouldn't be as, I'm scared of letting go of that, because then I, who would want to hang out with me, really? You know, if I'm just like, who am I? Who are you? Like, what else do you talk about? You just literally exist? Or maybe I'm just really dumbing down that experience, and I think it's different for a lot of people. But there is a lot of knowledge in all of this, and the biggest thing that has been helping me is the looking at my thoughts outside of myself and be like, huh, okay, there's that, instead of chasing it and drowning in it and going in circles with it. So, howdy, Gavin. $525,600 minutes, seasons of life. That's in response to a comment, in case someone's watching later and it seemed just a random, which that's fine too. Alright, so, I guess I'm gonna end this with a question for you, and if any of you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to add, now's the time. Okay, my last question is completely random. It's, can you date someone with a much different intellectual level than you? Or looking outside, do you think a friend could date someone else with a lower intellectual level or a higher intellectual level by quite a bit? And how do you measure that? Because there's lots of different smarts. Well, let's say that they have a low IQ and they're not very situationally smart, but they got a heart of gold. What is your, come on, experts. What is your thought on that? That's a question that Franco wanted to know. I asked the question.
You did?
I did. I'm waiting to hear back what people think. But meanwhile, I guess I think it depends, but a lot of times if someone has a significantly higher intellectual level than you, mostly how kind they are matters, because they could manipulate the person who is less intelligent, potentially. They could manipulate or condescend, or on the other hand, they could feel like they're not in a fulfilling relationship, getting enough of the mental stimulation as they want. Like, they might not be having as great conversations, or they might feel misunderstood, or like they're not speaking similar languages or something else. So, but I think it could potentially work if they balance each other out. It's a very, very random question to follow up all that talk of ideas enlightenment, but it's okay if none of you have an opinion. If you do, oh, Hope says, I think so, because everyone's a pie and they can be strong in one way and you can fill in their weaknesses. That's cute. Everyone's a pie. Yeah, I think it's potential too. You just gotta be careful that they're a good person, like with any relationship. Don't want them to manipulate you and steal all your money or something. I guess it's also really hard to measure this, so it's kind of like not the greatest question. Alright, so I am going to leave this public, I think, for a little bit so that anyone who wasn't able to catch the live stream can contribute after the matter. So if you have any thoughts, questions, ideas, perspective, I love to hear your thoughts, ideas, questions, perspective. All right, you guys have a wonderful week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 Tuesdays. Bye. 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 It's more important that they're nice than smart. Bye.